After an accident, minutes matter. Your words and actions matter even more. You need help, and you need it now. This is David versus Goliath, brought to you by Dolman Law Group Accident Injury Lawyers, a boutique firm with a reputation for going head-to-head with the insurance company giants and putting people over profits.
All right, I'm Stan Gipe here with my partner Matt Dolman for another episode of the David vs. Goliath podcast. Today, we've got another story about birth control and some of the issues that's going on with the Depo-Provera lawsuit. Matt, why don't you tell people a little bit about what Depo-Provera is?
So Depo-Provera is an injectable birth control medication, but the problem is we're seeing, and again, people tend to rush into these mass torts with a lot of excitement, and it's early, and there's not a whole lot of scientific literature on this, but we're seeing anecdotally that the injection is causing a whole host of medical issues, including brain tumors.
Right. So what we got, Depo-Provera is an injectable birth control, right? So every 3 months, if you're using Depo-Provera, you go in, you get an injection. Theory, it's going to keep you from getting pregnant and avoid unwanted pregnancies. It was approved in 1992, so it's been around for a very long time, right? And it was just recently that the British Journal of Medicine published a study that was done by some French doctors. And this study was published back in March. And the study, the real thing on it, they were studying 18,000 women with meningiomas, which is a type of tumor. And in that study, just through anecdotally, it wasn't really what they were looking for. They found that women who had taken Depo-Provera were 5 times as likely to have a meningioma than women who had not taken Depo-Provera. So what's that mean to plaintiff attorneys? What's that mean to the people, the general public? People start going, well, oh my gosh, there might be a risk of this medication that should have been discovered earlier. There might be a risk women need to know about. And okay, so that's looking forward. There might be stuff we need to warn people about. Looking back, there might be people we did not warn before, and now they've got brain tumors, they've got other problems that they really should have been warned were possible from this medication.
Yeah,
So
I mean, you're going to have obviously your failure to warn argument, your design defect claim. The problem that we have is, again, this is one study. And is it really show correlation or true causation? I would like to see more scientific literature, more peer-reviewed medical studies out there. They're also going to question the sampling and who actually was studied it here. So, again, is the data strong? Is it going to hold up under the microscope or scrutiny of a federal Daubert examination, which is obviously a multi-day hearing in federal court? If this case advances far enough, assuming that these cases get consolidated, right? All the federal cases get consolidated, and by the joint panel and multi-district litigation, or judicial panel rather. And eventually they get consolidated in one courtroom. They're going to go through Daubert hearing, which is to qualify whether the X causes Y. Does exposure to Depo-Provera really cause brain tumors? It's too early, but everyone's jumping into this because there really isn't a whole lot of mass torts out there that have a lot of substance right now.
Well, here's, and you kind of hit on it. And this is basically the situation in every mass tort or multi-district litigation we get involved in. And this isn't there yet. They think this is headed that direction, but it's not really a multi-district litigation yet. But
it will be within a few months, but yeah, go on.
Exactly. So the difference between correlation and causation, right? They found a correlation. Now someone's got to establish the causation. Because, like with anything, just because a correlation doesn't mean there's a causative effect.
Yes.
There's a number of different reasons things can be correlated. But here's what they found, right? The Depo-Provera, the correlation with a 5-time increase in the likelihood of suffering from these tumors only showed up in women who had been on the Depo-Provera for a series of at least 4 shots. So if you're taking Depo-Provera as prescribed, if you've been on it for a year, you're now in that window. You've noticed the increase in risk of these meningiomas. So if you've been diagnosed with a meningioma and you were on Depo-Provera for 12 months or more, it's probably a good idea to start looking a little deeper into things and seeing if you might not have a reason to look a little closer at Pfizer, right? Pfizer's the company we're talking about. And yeah, we have a lot of different things that go on in multi-district litigation. There's a lot of companies that do bad things. There's a lot of companies, and even if they're not doing bad things, a lot of companies that make mistakes. Not all companies have enough money to pay for their mistakes.
Yes,
right?
that's what makes it attractive. Is Pfizer is a big corporate defendant, publicly traded company. I haven't looked up Pfizer. Is Pfizer wholly owned?
They
are they subsidiaries?
Hey,
No, I know they're
just remember,
flush. I mean,
here's the thing: COVID-19 vaccine. Pfizer was the one that made this. They got so much cash, they don't know what to do with it. Everybody's been like buying their stuff off the shelf. So, while you say, a good target, whatever it is, they are a deep enough pocket to compensate people for any kind of wrongdoing that they've done. Right. And that's important because it takes a lot of resources to go after this. And if you expect to be compensated, you got to go after someone with the ability to compensate you. So, when you get down deep into this, I started looking, and, meningiomas go into three classifications: class 1, 2, and 3. I mean, obviously. The least one is a class 1. These are like benign. Right? They're not cancerous. They're just brain tumors or spinal tumors. Which still need to be monitored and need to be looked at. Doesn't mean they're necessarily asymptomatic, but non-cancerous.
Do they need to be removed?
Well, they may.
If they're asymptomatic, they don't need to be removed, correct?
Right. Now, grade 3. These are aggressive, malignant type of cancers. Significant radiation, significant treatment, risk of death, life-threatening type things.
Yeah, the question is how many stage 3 are there out there, and how many? Most of them are probably stage 1, 2. What's 2?
2 is between those two. It's between the most aggressive and the least aggressive. But, the stage 3 right now, I think they're looking is relatively rare. Okay, most of
I would assume so. You got a small, but is stage 2? I don't mean to cut you off, but does stage 2 require surgical intervention?
Stage 2, I believe, does require surgical intervention. Really, when you go out there and look at the literature, most of it's focused on stage 1, which is, hey, they're benign and there's nothing, or stage 3, where there's a lot of treatment, a lot of expenses, and a lot of resources devoted to the treatment. Now, what this means is, do we know that this is going to be a lawsuit? Do we know that women are going to get compensated for this yet? No. Right? We're just now starting to look at things. But now is exactly when, if you are someone who's had this experience, if you've suffered from an meningioma, this is when you need to get involved. This is because, as we know, the more of these claims we get involved in, the more multi-district litigation we get involved in, and the more people we end up helping in these types of claims, we find that time is not necessarily on our side, especially not the plaintiff's side, because with anyone who's got a burden of proof, the less records you have to support what happened, the harder it is for you to prove. Right? Sure. Depo-Provera has been around since 1992. Okay, let's say you were on Depo-Provera in 93 to 97. Those records are going to take a lot longer to hunt down than someone who was on Depo-Provera more recently, when records are more electronic, more centralized, easier to access. Old paper records sitting in boxes and files may or may not be there. Right? You may have to go, well, the pharmacy doesn't have the records. Let's see if her insurance company had the records. Right? So these types of things take a while. Sometimes it can take months and months and several different efforts to find the records you need to support the claim. If so like right now, okay, we're involved in the Suboxone lawsuits. We just got a census order that we got to respond to in 270 days. We got to provide certain information on these cases. Look, I can promise you, this. We've been working on getting this information for a year now. And we still don't have it all on everybody, because there's a lot of stuff you need to do. If we had just started right now, we would be so far behind the 8 ball. Doing this stuff, it'd be impossible. So even though this case may not be going to suit right now, and even though we're a ways out from multi-district litigation, if you think you may have a claim or you may be involved in this, now is when you need to get involved with. So I'd be happy if you called us, but call someone, because someone needs to start getting out there, getting your records, Look at Part A. Look for Point B. What are we missing? Where are we going to find the holes in the record so that we can get them? You can get them in place so that when you need to provide them to the defense, they are there.
Yeah, I just want to temper expectations here, though. So we are going to be involved in these cases, and again, I'm just playing the downside of the case. But yes, we are taking these cases, and we're very much interested in this lawsuit. But I don't think the universe of claimants out there that required surgical intervention is that large. What also, if I was like advising other law firms about this tort or this project, what scares me is that there's every law firm and their mother is jumping into this litigation. There's only a small universe of actual claimants that are compensable. So you have a lot of people fishing for not that many cases out there, and a lot of lead generation companies jumping in saying it's the next great thing, but I just don't think there's going to be that many compensable cases. But for the individual claimants, the downside is this. We have one study. I mean, in Tylenol, if we remember Tylenol, the in utero exposure to acetaminophen led to neurodevelopmental disorders. That was the claim, but that never got past Daubert because it was shown to be correlation, not causation, despite the fact there were 16 studies that showed at least a 2 to 3-fold risk increase by using acetaminophen or the exposure to acetaminophen in utero. This is scant medical evidence. We have one study. Yes, the claimants will say or the plaintiff lawyers. I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate. Will say that there's 18,000 individuals that were studied, or it was a retroactive study where they went through a meta-analysis. I don't know. It's again too early, and I don't know if it's going to pass scientific muster.
I 100% agree, but everything starts with one study.
Of course, I just want to make
there's
sure
always
people
one
understand
before
that.
there's two. So I agree with you, and to anyone to say that this is a slam dunk or anything like that, no, it's not. But we're at that stage where we're gathering information, and I think, at least from what we looked at, it looks pretty good from a claim perspective, and kind of bad, from a claimant perspective, because you got to put yourselves into who is using birth control.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When you look at your world of people using birth control, it's typically not the elderly.
Nope.
Right? These people that are using birth control are typically people with longer lifespans. Okay? A lot of times you kind of get two people. Either people who are on the backside of having kids and they're raising kids, right? Or they don't want to have kids at all. This is one group. And then the other group is people who are not ready to have kids yet. Right? But, figure, let's get rid of the group in the middle of people that don't want to have kids at all. Everything's a personal choice. No right on that. But, okay, people who are taking birth control because they're waiting on having kids, these are people planning on having a family, planning on doing all this long life ahead of them. A diagnosis of cancer is devastating. Right? It basically, it shortens life. It extinguishes all those dreams of the whole purpose for being on the birth control, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then you've got the people who've had kids and are in the process of raising them, and they don't want to have another kid right now because you got 2 babies and you're on birth control because you can't take that third one. Suddenly, that's almost the worst time in your life also to have to deal with cancer or something like this because you're raising kids.
But as if there is a good time to deal with that. But yeah, I'm with you.
Well, no, there's never a good time. But, if I'm 78 years old and I've got leukemia, it's a completely different experience than if I'm 28 years old and raising 2 kids, because I've lived my life. At some point we all pass on. There's no such thing as saving a life. They're all going to expire. That at some point you can extend it, but you can't save it. Right? So if it happened to you at the end of your life, certainly it's horrible. It's awful, but you're not being cheated out of that much. Hopefully you've seen your kids. You've seen all this stuff. It happens at the front end of your life. Just think about you. Think about me. All the stuff we're looking forward to that's still out there. Even I'm 50, right? I'm planning on traveling, seeing my kid do all these things. If you're 78, you got less of that going on. There's still stuff to look forward to. But what they're taking from these younger people, if in fact this happens, it's a lot. It's a lot to deal with.
Agree with everything you're saying, but what is the universe of individuals out there that actually were diagnosed with cancer? Is a cancerous tumor that we can tie back to Depo-Provera. And of that small universe, how many are we going to be able to prove up with actual available medical records, which is going to be far less? Yet every lead generation company out there is selling you on Depo-Provera, but you're buying cases that may or may not be compensable. There's going to be a lot less compensable cases in a much smaller universe than people are expecting out there.
Hang on. You mentioned something about lead generation company.
Who I respect greatly. We use them, but I'm just
well,
yeah. When
let's
there's
just talk
not any other projects going on and Camp Legion's over, people are just coming out of the woodwork selling this. There's some good companies and there's some bad ones. Yeah.
Lead generation. So this, when someone's listening, is like, what the hell's a lead generation company, right? This is our lingo. There's two types of people you'll see advertising for cases. One are lead generation companies, which go out there, advertise for these cases, bring them in, and then try to sort of work with attorneys and sell them the leads over time to work on. The other time you're going to see out there is actual law firms, people like us, right, that are out there advertising because they're bringing in the cases, they're getting them. Not saying that one's right or wrong, but, if you were looking to, let's say, retain Matt or I, because you saw us on a podcast, going through a lead generation company is probably not the way to go. If you see someone talking like an attorney that you say, whether it be us or anyone else on the internet, if you want that person, you're going to have to go to that law firm. If you're looking at a service and it's lead generation, nothing wrong with that. We've worked with some of those companies. But if it's not a true law firm that you're looking at, that you're giving the information to, they're probably working with a law firm. Maybe a good law firm. I'm not saying anything wrong with it. But
no, many great law firms, but there's also many average law firms or guys who really don't know what they're doing, and women too. I mean, that you just, when you work for a lead generation company, you're working with whatever law firm's paying them that month. That's not based on merit. It's based on who's paying. So just buyer beware. But more specifically, I like this project. I just think it's early, and I want to temper expectations based on lack of available science. And two, you've got a big hurdle to overcome, but there's a small population of these claimants out there. That's all. Want to tell individuals out there how to find us if they're interested in the Depo-Provera lawsuit?
Yeah, so, always the best way to get us is dolmanlaw.com. All right, these days, the internet is king because you can find out anything you want about
Even
us,
better
right?
is our mass tort website, Lawsuit Legal News.
Well, Lawsuit Legal News is definitely a way to find information, right? There is more information on Lawsuit Legal News about torts, about every mass multi-district litigation, everything, than just about anywhere else on the internet. Quicker direct line to us, though, is Dolman Law.
Yes.
Right? If you've already decided that you want to hire us, you can go to dolmanlaw.com. You want to find out more information, Lawsuit Legal News is probably the best source on the internet, I would say, for any mass tort you're looking for out there. Matt, what about a phone number? If they've already made the decision, they just want to call right in.
833-552-7474. Again, 833-552-7474 is our toll-free number nationwide. A local number in Clearwater, Florida, 727-415-6900. You can email me anytime, and I'll happily connect you with our whole team, and I'll verify your claim. When you hire us, you get Stan and I. So any time of day, just reach out to me at Matt, M-A-T-T, at Dolman Law, D like in David, OLMANLAW.com. Always happy to help.
Yes, and one thing I will clean up, our phone number is 727-451-6900.
Did I say 415?
Yes.
Got
a little dyslexic on us there for a second.
Yeah,
so.
Need some coffee. My
All right.
apologies.
But hey, minor mistake. Anyway, we always enjoy making these podcasts. We hope people enjoy listening to them. If you've got any questions, you can reach out to us. We always enjoy interacting with you, the audience, anyone. It's kind of fun for us. So don't hesitate to reach out if you got any questions about this or any other podcast you see us out there on.
Thank you, and have a great day.
And this wraps up another edition of the David vs. Goliath podcast.
This episode of David vs. Goliath is over, but your journey is just getting started. To share your story with us, visit dolmanlaw.com. That's DOLMAN law.com, or call 866-965-6242. The insights and views presented in David vs. Goliath are for general information purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice for any individual case or situation. The information presented is not a substitute for consulting with an attorney, nor does tuning into this podcast constitute an attorney-client relationship of any kind. Any case result information provided on any portion of this podcast should not be understood as a promise of any particular result in a future case. Dolman Law Group. Big firm results, small firm personal attention.